Welcome back, folks. I'm Priz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about spellcasters. I recently talked about the basics of every single martial class in the game, and now it's time to talk about the casters in the room. A really important part of how every spellcaster feels to play is their spellcasting tradition, so I'd recommend actually checking out the video I made recently about spellcasting traditions if you're curious. But there is a fair amount to spellcasters outside of their spellcasting tradition, so let's jump into it. First off, bards are one of the staple occult spellcasters, and they are the go-to class for general support. Bards can boost just about everyone in the party with their composition focus spells, and Inspire Courage in particular is an exceptional focus spell, and you get it at level 1 and it's a cantrip. Outside of their basic support capabilities, bards have multiple ways to specialize. You can always just take a lot of composition spells other than Inspire Courage, and you can also go the direction of trying to become a jack of all trades. Either way, unlike in other editions, bards don't have any martial capabilities in Pathfinder 2e, and they are absolutely full spellcasters, so keep that in mind. Clerics are rather interesting. First off, they are prepared divine casters who effectively know every divine spell automatically, which is pretty different when you compare them to a wizard that has to learn each spell individually, and that gives them a ton of versatility each day. In terms of the class themselves, clerics have the choice of really between focusing more on support abilities or ways to give themselves more staying power. If you're wanting to play a war priest cleric, I'm just going to warn you up front that you are still a full spellcaster. You're not a martial character. But you're still going to work fine so long as you set your expectations to not, I'm going to hit things constantly, and instead I'm going to be up on people's faces, buffing the hell out of everybody. Finally, all clerics have access to a bunch of heightened heal or harm spells every day, and they're really good. Seriously, a 2-action heal on a party member can bring them from being on their last legs to full health. Don't underestimate the power of a reset button when you really need it. Druids are the only dedicated primal spellcaster currently in the game, and I'd personally say that their niche is variety. What druids are capable of is super broad depending on how they're built, and they're honestly just slick. Do you want to call down the power of the elements on your foes? Druids are great at that. Do you want to turn into animals basically whenever you want for either combat or utility? Druids have that for you. Druids really just do an insane amount in 2e, though a fair amount of their feats aren't going to work nearly as well if you're in urban environments. The Magus class is a rather weird spellcaster, as you can probably tell considering that I also talked about them in my video on martial classes. Magi are not full spellcasters, and they will hardly have any spell slots each day when compared to other full spellcasters. But if you're just looking to do big damage with magic, then Magus might be what you're looking for. They stab or punch or shoot people with magic all of the time, and often that's a better delivery method than casting spells normally. Basically, if you're just wanting to cast powerful magic occasionally and blow people up, then the Magus might be the spellcaster for you. Oracles are the other dedicated divine spellcaster in the game, and they're rather different from clerics. They get their power through a powerful, double-edged curse that gives them insights into certain elements of the universe. The main mechanic that oracles juggle is their own curse, which progresses as they use their focus spells and provides both strong drawbacks and strong benefits, based on how severe they let their curse progress. Do you want to watch the world get engulfed in flames as you get surrounded by a smoke from fires that no one else can see? Do you want to become less and less tied to the earth underneath your feet as you become one with the great expanse above? The Oracle is one of the best classes in the game for finding some fantastic flavor to tie in with your character's roleplay. Psychics are in some ways similar to bards as they are occult spellcasters, but unlike how bards generally focus on supportive abilities, psychics can deal some really insane damage, using their unique focus spell mechanics, which allow them to customize some of their pre-existing and unique cantrips, and through unleashing the power of their mind, psychics can be honestly pretty terrifying damage dealers. That isn't to say that psychics are limited to just dealing damage, though. Some psychic conscious minds focus more on support, divination, and battlefield control, and honestly, they're all wonderful. Psychics have exceptional focus spells, and if you like those, I highly recommend the Psychic. And additionally, the whole class just gives you the ability to get a feat that causes chain reactions of exploding heads. What's not to love? Sorcerers are actually unlike any of the other classes so far in this video, as they cast from any spellcasting tradition, though which one they have access to is dependent on their bloodline. This means that basically every sorcerer can be hugely different from each other, and they also get a couple of great ways to enhance the punch that their spells pack. One drawback that I just need to get out here is that also applies to any of the other flexible classes that can cast from different spell traditions, is that there are going to be less feats relating to particular concepts. That isn't to say that the sorcerer doesn't have good feats, but rather, if you compare them to a druid, sorcerers aren't going to have nearly as many nature-themed abilities, since sorcerers are not an inherently nature-themed class. But with that out of the way, sorcerers are overall wonderful, and they can pump out really crazy amounts of spells over adventuring days because they have a lot. Summoners are another weird spellcasting class with access to every tradition, since, half of the class doesn't actually cast spells. Similar to how the Magus spends most of their time hitting people and occasionally casting spells while hitting people, a lot of the time summoners will be hitting stuff with their Eidolon while casting cantrips or boosting said Eidolon. When compared to the Magus, though, the summoner themselves feels more like a traditional spellcaster when you compare them to a Magus. And the class itself is just tons of fun in basically every way. It's honestly funny just to see how much a summoner can break the action economy. Witches are the last flexible spell tradition class, with their tradition associated with their specific patron. Witches have a lot going on in the class, and while they do have a reputation online for being a bit subpar, I think that it's mostly undeserved. Witches have one of, if not the best familiars in the entire game, which you can get a lot out of if you remember that you can change their abilities every day. Plus, some of their hex spells, especially the ones granted through lesson feats, are absolutely incredible. The Witch is just a really fun class despite their flaws, so you just have to be careful whenever you're making them. And really, it's great if you're just wanting to be extra spooky. And finally, the Wizard is about what you'd expect. They cast arcane spells, and they cast them good. Beyond that, there is a lot of room for how wizards want to be good at casting their spells. If you take spell substitution as your arcane thesis, you can literally pick the perfect spell for each situation if you just have a bit of time, and spell blending can help you get more high-level spells per day than anyone else. Using a combination of their arcane school of choice and their arcane thesis, wizards are absolutely wonderful and can cover a lot of ground. And they're not completely overpowered in this edition. So yeah, spellcasting classes in 2e are a lot of fun. While a lot of what they do does still end up coming down to what spells they know, every class still has their own distinct feeling and playstyle. Some classes get more from class features than others, but they often get that due to trading away spell slots every day. And overall, I'm just super happy with the state of spellcasters in Pathfinder 2e. Thanks for watching. I hope that this summary of spellcasters is sufficient considering that I've played basically none of them. Let me know what you think down below in a comment, and while you're down there, please consider subscribing and joining the channel as a member. Being a member is the best way to support me by far, and my members get bonus stuff in exchange for helping me pay my rent. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.